The development tool that I'm going to show you is so powerful that I'm kind of afraid to show it to anybody because it's going to make creating large-scale maps for any game so easy that almost anybody could do it. Not only can you generate multiple kilometers of really good-looking maps in a matter of seconds, but after you have generated the map that you want to use, if there's anything you don't like about it, you can use your mouse to drag parts of that map from one side to another. If you see an entire mountain and you don't like where that mountain is, you can take your mouse and click and drag that entire mountain anywhere else on the map, and it will still look flawless. But that's not all this tool does, because in addition to generating entire levels, you can also draw where you want buildings, trees, rocks, anything. And it will actually procedurally generate the entire biome for forests, plains, deserts, whatever for that area, creating multiple kilometer, highly detailed environments at the press of a button. This is pretty cool stuff. And in this video, I am not only going to show you this plugin, I'm going to show you how to utilize it. I have been working with the creator of this plugin for a little while now. We're even working on some projects, on some games together on the side, and he gave me this plugin to try out for some of my own projects, and I have been really, really impressed. If you want to pick it up, you can grab it on the Unreal Engine store. Link is down below. But if you are interested in creating large-scale maps for your games in Unreal Engine quickly, this is the way to go. And even if you're not utilizing Unreal Engine to make your game, you can even use this tool to generate terrains that you can then export and utilize anywhere, not even in Unreal Engine, anywhere. So if you are a game developer, I highly recommend that you watch this video the entire way through so you can understand how to use this tool for your own games. And if you want to get more information on more tools that I think are really going to elevate anybody's ability to make games faster and better, make sure you subscribe to this channel because this isn't even close to the craziest stuff that I am going to show you in the coming weeks. All right, let's get into the full tutorial that's going to show you how to make large-scale maps for your game using massive worlds inside of Unreal Engine. Let's do it. Now, the first thing that we're going to be doing is we are going to be creating a fresh Unreal Engine 5.5 project because in order to get this plugin to work, there is a number of other plugin dependencies that we want to make sure that we install first. So that way, when we utilize some of the starter content, it's all going to work completely out of the box. And for this, we're just going to be choosing a blank project, massive plugin demonstration. That's a little bit too long. We'll just call it demo. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to create that project. Once our project has been created, we are going to be going through and adding a number of plugins by going to the edit and then plugins. And then we are going to be adding the procedural content generation framework, the PCG external data interop, landscape patch, both of these scriptable tool plugins, geometry script, and then we're going to be enabling something called runtime virtual texture, which we'll have to enable in our project settings. Just type in virtual texture support, make sure you check that, and then we'll go ahead and restart our project to make sure all of those plugins and all of those settings are now working. Now that our project is completely set up with everything ready to go, we are going to open up the Fab window, which has our plugin available, searching for Massive World, and we're going to go ahead and add that to our project. And because Unreal Engine 5 is awesome, it will completely download and install all of that without us having to do anything. So we're just going to wait until this is done. All right, now we have our massive folder here, which is going to have all of our starter and demo content, and we can start utilizing this to create large-scale environments really easily in Unreal Engine 5. And if you want to make sure that everything is working, you can go to Massive World, and then under the demo folder, there should be a massive world demo map. And if you can load this and everything looks like it's there, well, then you have installed the massive world plugin correctly and you can get started making awesome maps. Now, in order to get started, we don't want to work in the demo map. We want to create our own map. So we're going to create a new folder for our project. We'll call it Massive Demo. And then we'll go in here and create a folder for our maps. And then we will create a fresh new level called Massive Demo. And utilizing this level, we can create a large-scale map using the Massive World plugin. Now, the Massive World plugin is a blueprint that you can actually run from the blueprints folder. So you will go from Massive World blueprint, and then you have the Massive World editor, which is a utility script. This is kind of how Unreal Engine is structured for some things. So you can have these independent utility widgets that you can run. And with this, you can start generating worlds. Now, unfortunately, the world that you generate isn't going to look like much if you can't see it because there's no light in your level. So if you are a beginner Unreal Engine 5 developer, well, one of the first things that you're going to need to do when you create a new level is add some light to it. And we're going to do that right now. We're going to add in a directional light, but a directional light isn't going to make things visible if it doesn't have anything to bounce off of. So in order to make it so the world has an atmosphere that the light can bounce off of, that we can actually see the world around us, we're going to add in an atmosphere. So now you have lighting, but your level isn't going to do much if there isn't a landscape for the Massive World plugin to actually work with. So in order to do that, we're going to conveniently switch to the tool called Landscape. And utilizing this, you can select a master material, and you can use any landscape material you want. There is one that comes out of the box for Massive World, and it has a couple of paint layers that are already pre-created. But if you were to create another landscape material, this is great reference if you wanted to create one yourself. But for now, we're just going to use the default. You can set your overall resolution, and once that is all done, there is a create button down here. Once you have all of your settings, you click create. Once that has been created, you now have your landscape height map, which doesn't look like much because you haven't configured it yet. But in order to make this look good and work with the out-of-the-box material landscape layer, we're just going to set up some of our paint layers. And you can just follow along exactly with me, because if you do this, you're going to want to call these exactly the same. If you're using the out-of-the-box landscape material, we're going to create this first layer. We're going to call it Auto Landscape. And for each of these, we're going to be creating a weight blended layer. Then we'll create a paint layer called Grass, and we'll create a weight blended layer for that. Next, we will create a paint layer for the cliffs, and we'll just call that layer Cliff and create a weight blended layer for it. Then we'll create a layer called Beach. And lastly, we will be creating two layers called No Grass, which will have a non-weight blended layer. And our last layer will be called No Biome, which is also non-weight blended. Once you have reached this point, you are technically ready to start generating height maps for your maps. There are some additional configurations that you're going to have to do to make them look good, but you can now start generating actual terrain. And in order to do this, we're just going to open up our editor, and that will create these two blueprints in your world, which will allow you to start generating height maps. So you can decide how many mountains you want, how many plains you want, hills, desert, badlands, and click generate. And every time you click generate, it will add these height map stamps to your map. Now, the coolest thing about this plugin, something that I think really sets it apart, isn't just the fact that it allows you to procedurally generate a map, but the amount of control that it gives you over how you procedurally generate the map is really cool. And that is almost entirely controlled by this item here called the WorkZone. And this item allows you to not just control how you are procedurally generating your map, but it also allows you to control where. So you can take this WorkZone box and you can move it to to any part of the map. You can also scale this box up and down. And when you scale it and press generate, it will generate height map segments only for that part of your world. And it does this by utilizing these little stamps. Each time you press generate, it will create new stamps under your massive world blueprint. And each of these stamps can be independently controlled. So if you don't like where they are, you can actually move these stamps. And that will also change the world that they are impacting. And you can combine them with other stamps together, basically creating an additive layer-based height map. It's really, really cool with the amount of precision that it can give world creators creating entirely procedurally generated terrains, but also allowing you to maintain that level of control so you can do specific things to specific parts of your map. And I'm going to showcase that a little bit to you right now. So we're going to take this work zone, and we are going to create a giant mountain over here. And at the same time, we're going to go over here, and we're going to create the opposite of a mountain. We are going to create a lake. And as you can see, it has now cut out this entire area where, if we wanted to, we could put a body of water there, or we could just leave it as a valley. And as I showed before, each of these new stamps that have been added are customizable. So I can move this over here. Let's say I don't want this mountain to be on this side of the map. I want it to be on the other side of the map. So I'm going to just click and drag this entire mountain to the other side of the map, and voila, there it is. This is extremely powerful because now, as a level designer, not only can you play around with generating different segments of your map, but if there are any individual features of the map that you like and you want to move somewhere else, you can literally click and drag a mountain from one side of your terrain to the other. That is extremely useful. As a game developer, as a level designer, this is extremely nice to have inside of your game engine. Not even as an external tool. Inside of Unreal Engine, you can now not just procedurally generate height maps, but have an unprecedented amount of control over how you create your maps, but also still being able to edit them if you don't like any aspect and want to quickly change it on the fly by just dragging features to different sections. I mean, that's really nice. Now, you have created your height maps inside of Unreal Engine 5, but now we want to start making this look nice. And there are some additional, slightly technical things that you'll need to do in addition to mastering some other tools that come with this plugin, like the biome system, where you can take this from a kind of impressive looking height map to something truly magical. And if you want to learn how to do that, make sure you keep watching this video. Now, when you zoom in on this default landscape material, you'll notice there are some things that have still not been fully set up. And what that is your RVT. What you need to do is you are going to type in virtual texture volume, and you're going to add 2 of these to your world. Now, in order to even have these available, make sure you follow this tutorial from the beginning, because you do have to enable this setting in your project settings for this to even be available to be added. But now we are going to add 2 of these. And once we've added these, we are going to assign them these runtime virtual textures. One will be the height and one will be the color. And then we are also going to set the boundaries for these. And as you can see, when we set this, we're going to take this eyedropper tool, we're going to select the landscape, and then we're going to set bounds. And you can also expand the Z scale if you want. I highly suggest doing so, because what you're going to want is to have this texture volume encompass your entire terrain. And since the height map can go a little bit higher or lower depending on the design of your map, you want to make sure that these texture volumes can encompass the entire thing. And we're going to set that for both. And once that's done, we're going to go into our landscape, and we are going to add in 2 draw in virtual texture elements and assign those to the same virtual textures that we did previously. And once you have those settings set, you'll notice that all of your base default foliage now looks pretty, and we are ready to move on to the next phase of making our amazing procedurally generated map, which is adding in the biomes, the trees, the rocks, all of the other procedural elements that are going to make this map go from a decent looking height map to something absolutely amazing. The first thing you're going to want to do is throw down a plane, and once you have it set the way you want, you can make this either a lake or you can turn your entire map into a chain of islands. Then you can throw a water material shader on it, and bam, you either have an ocean or you have a lake, really whatever you want. And in order to make this really pop, you can throw in some volumetric clouds, throw in some volumetric fog, and the last touch, you want to throw in some post-process effects. You can actually grab some from the demo level that comes with Massive Worlds, and that's going to really give it that clean, natural terrain look. But now that we have our terrain looking more or less the way that we want it, this is the part where I really get to blow your mind, because one of the best tools is the biome system, and it's very easy to use. First, we're going to switch over to the scriptable tools mode, and this is a cool mode for Unreal Engine 5 where you now have access to all of the custom tools that come with your plugins or anything else that you add to your project. And the creator of Massive Worlds has made some really fun ones. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to select our biome. Now, the cool thing about this is that if you want to, you can nerd out on this, and you can actually go into these data sets and you can create custom foliage presets with any foliage from any asset pack. So if you want to create a stylized environment, a photorealistic environment, a forest, alien vista, whatever you want, you can go in here and you can customize every single type of tree, every single type of rock, every single detail about these individual biomes. And once you have these configured the way that you want, you can select your biome presets by this dropdown and then literally draw on your map where you want each individual biome to be. So if you want a forest here, you can just draw that and it will procedurally generate a forest in that area. If you want to have a bunch of rocks on this high mountainous region, here we go. Now it is created not just a bunch of rocks, but all sorts of other little grass details, pebbles, other things that would make sense to add to that specific area. And one of the most mind-blowing things about the biome system is you can actually layer them. So, for instance, I'm going to take this biome here and I'm going to call it forest. And I am going to put an entire forest around this entire segment of this island. And keep in mind, this is a 2 by 2 kilometer map. So this is a large area. And I'm going to just have it make a forest for this entire section. Look how fast it can do this. Just a couple of seconds, and it has now created an entire forest for this entire area. Now, you can also do some additional things. As you can see, it put some trees in the water here. That doesn't make sense. Well, let's go ahead, and we can even customize this to utilize a custom water level. And when we do that, what it'll do is it will actually remove all of the trees from the water and we'll have a completely different biome for underwater. So you can see all of these trees are up in the grass and all of these blue seaweed looking foliage sets are in the water. Another incredibly cool thing about this tool is that you can also layer the biomes. So not only are we going to have this procedural generation system for biomes, take into consideration the water area, we can also add additional biomes on top of this biome in order to designate specific areas that we want to utilize different foliage sets. So we are going to select the rocks biome, and we're going to give it a priority level of 0. And we're going to draw that around this mountainous region where it probably wouldn't make as much sense to have trees. And then, once we have done that, we're going to select our tree layer, and we're going to give this a priority level lower than the priority level of the rock biome. And when we do that, it will regenerate all of this foliage in order to specifically have rocks and other specific small foliage on our mountainous region, and the woodland biome set to this lower region, and again, our underwater biome down here. So hopefully this illustrates how much control this gives you, not just over the height maps, not just over the terrain, but also over the foliage and all of the other aspects of the map. And this plugin also has another expansion where you can also use it to generate villages and even cities. And that is something that we're going to go into for one of my next videos. So if you enjoyed this video, if you want to see more videos like this and get more information on how to make large-scale games using Unreal Engine, make sure you subscribe to this channel. If you appreciated this tutorial, let me know down in the comments. And if you also are interested in joining our Discord community, I will have a link down below where we talk about everything from game development to AI and all sorts of other technology that can help us build our games faster, better, and in ways that allow smaller indie teams to do bigger, cooler stuff. All right. Thanks so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.